SdbS, which doesn't roll off the tongue, is really an approach that, in contrast to kind of how many entrepreneurs, I think, start companies, right? Which is you have an idea and then you go design it, especially in the tech, in the valley, right? If it's a tech kind of centered thing, usually the first thing you do, and there's a lot of technical founders in the valley, you go out, you design something, you build it, and then you try to raise money and you try to go sell the product. I often call it design, build, pray, because you don't really know sometimes until you actually kind of launch the product whether you're going to get huge success with it or not. And, you know, there's success is variable, of course, and often you'll discover that you're not as successful as you wished you were or you thought you were going to be. This approach is really an attempt to kind of address what I call the founder's dilemma, right? I don't know when, and maybe must have been a momentary lapse of reason when I said passion is not important. I believe in passion, so that's the fuel that keeps you going, right? Being passionate as a founder, the Achilles heel of that is the fact that in your passion to convince somebody, co-founders or your funders or customers, you're really passionate about the idea, and right at the time that you should be most critically evaluating your idea, which is at the inception. The inception of your idea is the time when it should go through a trial by fire, when you should be evaluating it. You should be the strictest and the worst critic of your own idea. Unfortunately, you have this kind of other role that you're trying to be a passionate kind of proponent of it, right? And it's a very, very difficult thing. And I don't, most people kind of can't wrap their head around that. And unfortunately, that's the time when you can kind of make some of the changes that are going to be critical to your success. So how do you address this dilemma of trying to be a passionate founder while at the same time needing to be the worst critic or the toughest evaluator of your own idea? So how do you address that problem? So SdbS attempts to do that. And to be honest, this SdbS is something that I kind of tried out when I was at HP as an entrepreneur, right? And for a couple of businesses. And so for me, this is my 5th time of using this approach. And it's kind of worked for me. So, everybody kind of finds something that kind of, works for them. So this is something that's kind of worked for me and my co-founders. It sounds like a very odd thing to do. Me and our co-founders do is we don't have just one idea. Now, this seems like a strange thing to say. Here's the problem, right? You're only human. If you have only one idea, you fall into the trap, often rationalizing your idea. You're out there when you're looking for feedback. You're only looking for the positive feedback. Oh, look, he nodded. He must love it. This guy frowned, but I didn't look there, or I didn't register. I dialed the volume down on that. You're looking for positive affirmation, right? If you have only one idea, because you're only human. You're worried, is this thing gonna work? I'm a founder, I don't have money, I've got to convince people. So you're looking for positive affirmation. Being a passionate entrepreneur, one of the failings we have, get that sort of minimum viable affirmation and we go for it. Bam, right? Somebody funding you is the affirmation. That's really dangerous. A VC is in the business of putting that money to work. Their LP is going to sit on their head and say, what the hell are you doing if you're not investing my money? The VC is there waiting to give money to the best idea they can find depending on their deal flow. Customers, on the other hand, are in the business of hanging on to their money. They're not being paid to give their money to you, right? They're being paid to just succeed in their jobs. I'm sure, how many folks here have interviewed multiple people for a job? Sometimes you're trying to figure out, right? Sometimes you've got a job description and it's really not accurate. Most often you calibrate the people as you're going. So there are a few rare folks, right? There are a few rare folks you go, look, they're just trash. Don't even have the rest of the interviews. Or don't let that person leave the building without an offer. But the vast majority of the people are in between. You may not be able to, at the end of an interview, say, yep, that's the person. But what you can do is say, that person was better than this person was better than this person. You can rank stack people. So having 2 or 3 ideas, the basic concept is we use that as a method to rank stack our own ideas. And it's not us rank stacking them, it is customers. So we let the customers vote. And that's the kind of the idea with the American Idol. The audience votes, not the judges. Whoever you assume are the judges, right? Probably VC if you're thinking of funding at that time. But it's customers in the end who are the eventual judge. What we are doing in these things, in SdbS, is having 2 or 3 ideas. And the ideas could come from anywhere. It could come from one of us. It could come from somebody else. It could come from a customer. It doesn't matter what the genesis of the idea is. But what we're doing then is we're using a process to rank stack them. And that involves getting a customer to help rank stack them. Now, the other thing we would typically do is build a proof of concept. Why do you build a proof of concept? For 2 reasons. When you're sharing an idea, it's best to have it be very visceral. You don't want to just do slideware. You want to show something that is as close to the real experience that the customer is going to experience as possible. So you fake it up, you mock it, right? You don't necessarily build the real thing, so you don't build it. That's what tech founders end up doing. They end up building the damn thing right away. We kind of mock it up and make it look as close to the real thing as possible, and then use that to get higher quality feedback the more, the more visceral it is. The second thing is you actually learn a lot about the technology. Is it plausible? Can I build it? Do I have a competency in it? Is this something that is really bizarre and has other things that, and I'll give a few examples as we go along here about what we did, some of the ideas we had, and we learned so much about it. And with those 2, typically, you should be able to put a business plan. You'll find out kind of like basic stuff about, oh, that's very tough to do, or that's the supply chain for building that, or here's the other competitors involved in that. Then that's the most important thing, validate with customers and with thought leaders, not with VCs. And the other thing is, depending on who you are, some people, I think many folks think that your domain expertise is how you're an entrepreneur. I don't believe that, right? Our first company was a wireless sort of company that morphed into security. Second was storage and compression. And other than the fact that we knew nothing about storage or compression, we were all set. Third one was in containers, which is a new technology, that we didn't know anything about. So we get domain help from third-party people, especially to find customers, because it's very, very hard to find customers. And usually consulting firms, I'll give you some examples of companies that actually do that for a living. So this is not a fundraising exercise. This is a validation exercise. Should you be spending the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years of your life on this? Look, your life is a lot more valuable than the VC's money. Damn, it's your life. You're spending, your life force on this idea. The VC's got a portfolio. Every board member, every GP's got 10, 15 companies. They're going to do fine. You're committed. That's all you're going to be doing. So it's very, very important for you to figure out, are you going to be spending the next 4 or 5 years of your life on this, right? So that's why it's don't go to the VCs yet. You could if they are thought leaders. The other thing I wanted to kind of point out is having a few customers is not having a market, right? You can always find some weird guys who are doing some stuff that aligns with what you're saying. So you have to kind of do a test for market. My rule of thumb for enterprise products, and a consumer is different, right? Different walks of life is different, is if you talk to 25 to 30 customers, you can spot a trend. It's going to be good, bad, ugly, whatever, you get it. If you can talk to 25 or 30 representative customers, then you have sort of enough of a market. But the goal isn't to find 4 people who say that it's cool, because that is not a market. So you have to find enough to kind of make you feel like, hey, this is a market, not just these 4 folks. I'm pretending like I have the product already. So when we go out and we get feedback, we kind of pretend like we already have it. So sell is a proxy for listen. Like, in fact, we just did this for a new product line which started at Portworx. Kind of faked it. And like, hey, here's a product, we have it. It's launching in Jan. That's why it has to be fairly real. It should look like a demo. You kind of fake demo, it's chewing gum, baling wire on the back, doesn't really work. But that's what you have to do, because then people you have to have some credibility. Slideware, VCs are used to that, but customers don't want slideware. Some people. But usually those are the dangerous ones. They're in the lab group for Goldman Sachs. That's their job, right? Is to kind of evaluate these.